and gentlemen, to the Mexico Major. Sorting out those technical issues before we can get started with one of our first rematches of the tournament as well. And it's bound to be quite an exciting one. NA versus EU, some of the best of the region versus some of the best of the other region. We've got this matchup teed up. Stokes, what do you think of it?
Well, it's always interesting when North America goes up against EU, but we have to figure out what map we're going to first, my friends. So let's see exactly what battlegrounds we will be using between Navi and SSG. It's down to Cafe and Villa, and it will be Villa.
Villa should be a epic time here between these two teams. SSG, I know, can thrive under the conditions of this map, especially considering the fact that we do have hot and cold. The wheels are leading the wheels. Excuse me, a little messy there for SSG now. So very excited to see how this goes. We already saw, of course, earlier in the tournament, SSG able to take down Navi 7-4. But I was talking to Doki before they were getting ready, before they were getting prepped, and I won't say exactly what he told me because I did promise to keep it between us, but I'll say he feels very confident about his team's potential performance for this rematch.
Well, he should be. I mean, looking at the stats from their last engagement, Doki was actually the best player in the lobby at that moment, not by rating, but just from his impactfulness that he was able to carry throughout the entire round. I believe his cost at 82% inside of that. No one even holding a candle to that across the board.
Not only that, but the most proficient player in the lobby when it came to the entry game. Kind of a close first, though, is between him and Rampy. He had a 3-0 record. Rampy had a 2-0 record. So both the teams are sitting very close in that respect. Expect the overall gunfights and the early fights that these teams are going to be taking between each other to be a relatively even affair, where we have had in some of our previous matches today some pretty well-defined advantages for either team into that, but it's not looking like that's going to be the case for this one.
No, not seeming the case to be at all. Obviously, with Navi already playing up against SSG here, they have an idea of what they're walking into, so this is more than likely going to be a better shot at taking down SSG and this refined squad that we've been working with for a little while. And let me tell you, they have been absolutely dominant inside of North America, especially with the recent pickup of Hot and Cold, or as we like to call it, always hot, never cold, because Hotten is always on fire. Hot and hot, yes sir. So expect a lot out of these boys.
You can see the man himself along with the rest of the team getting very well prepared to jump into the matchup now. Should just be a few moments away, like
Don't leak the script, Rampy. What are you doing?
You know, those cameras are like really high def too, so like there's gonna be a screenshot of that somewhere.
I can't wait to see all the edits.
I give it 5 minutes and it's on the top front page of Reddit.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of edits of that one right there. I can tell you that for a fact. But I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of edits overall inside of a game like this, because when you have Navi and the playstyle that they've been going with recently up against a squad like SSG that's lethal when it comes to their gunfights and their mechanical skill overall, we are locked in to a hell in a cell. This is going to be about no gloves, just straight up fist fights in between these two. And it starts now here on Villa.
Someone might try to sneak some brass knuckles in there, in fact, as well.
Keep
We'll
them
see.
in the back of the car, man.
See if it gets dirty. But anyway, into the matchup we go. Navi versus SSG, one of our first rematches here with the group at the Mexico Major. Let's see if Navi can rebound after dropping the match yesterday, or if SSG will go 2-0 against their current opponent. We've got the bans coming up in front of you right now. SSG has the first and final ban, so they get the first choice here, and they will choose to knock out. Absolutely no surprise.
Wow, hard-hitting analysis.
Couldn't have guessed that one.
What a good ban. Crazy. Never expected that one to happen on Villa, so that's going to get removed. No longer having access to those EMPs for the offense. But what's the other ban going to be? That's the big question here. Navi going to remove Flores. I really like this ban, as Flores has found his way into the meta with his explosive drones.
Flores actually started to become a relatively common ban, at least as far as NA is concerned as well, just because of how useful those explosive drones are to deal with more preset utility pieces or harder to access utility pieces that you're not going to be able to so easily take out with a frag grenade because an ADS is going to be in the way, or some other factor as well. Now, that ban is an interesting one. Smoke getting knocked out. Let's talk about that.
I really like this. There's something that's been going on now on Villa as of late. Valkyrie obviously going to be removed as well. Just want to put that out there for you guys. But let's get back into the smoke conversation. There's something that's been happening quite recently on this map, and a couple of other ones as well. Something that we've been seeing inside of North America especially is Tachanka working his way into lineups. And there's a site on this map, AVG, Aviator Games, where people have started to use smoke as well as Tachanka to deny a lot of space, especially around the vaults area. So just taking away one of those operators.
All right, well, into the match as we go here, folks. SSG will get the defensive start here, so they're going to get their choice, and we're going to go right up to Aviation in game. No smoke means we pretty much are forced into using Tachanka now, so Bosco is going to immediately go for the pick on that one.
I feel a little good about myself. Just a little happy dance there for a split second. We're going to get some 6-pick in, though. Thinking Nade, not feeling the pulse. Honestly, neither am I. I like the one my pick here for AVG in tow with the Jaeger. Obviously, with this Mira setup, this is going to be really good for SSG. This entire strategy is all about stopping that that plant on Vault. But the big thing here is Na'Vi are going to be bringing Nathan on the buck here, so they have a direct counter to try and work some of those vertical angles and move SSG out of these hard-to-reach areas.
Well, guys, as well, if you're interested, and if you're looking for some new skins to deck your operators out with, you can go ahead and game. Check out the new Natus Vincere Zofia set. Like you see there, all the sales directly support Na'Vi, as do the sales of the rest of the new Rainbow Six Share program skins. So be sure to go ahead and check them all out, as there's quite a few good-looking ones.
Of course. Lots of good skins, and Na'Vi one no different. Very yellow is this one, though.
Yeah.
I actually like it. It stands out a lot. Kind of like a bumblebee kind of vibe.
Like a Ferrari race car yellow almost.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
exactly.
I know Ferrari's red. I'm just in case anybody jumps on me for that. But
Lambo yellow. I'll save you. Don't worry,
Yeah,
I got you. Either way, I mean, I'm expecting some Lambo or Ferrari peaks, whatever you want to call it, inside of this game here, especially in between these two. Let's jump on board and see what Na'Vi's got going on the north side of the map.
a lot of emphasis, like you just said, they're going to be coming in from our north side of the map. Doki, specifically, more likely going to be some of the first players to move in, or one of the first players to try and take some control here. Not going to be a whole lot of active resistance from SSG inside of the actual master area, but now, as we approach Astro, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. Bolt's throwing out a very early Nitro cell here as well, nearly meeting his target, but the play is a little bit too obvious. The Na'Vi player on Repel there is going to be able to get out of the way of that. Doki continuing to put pressure onto Fultz, and he gets the kill there, striking first in the match.
It's a little sloppy, but he gets it done. Fultz able, or almost able, to slip away. But not the case. Hot and Cold now looking to see if he can possibly get a refrag here, a trade of some sort. Negotiate this down to a 4 versus 4, but instead he's going to leave the area. Roaming Mira is not something they were exactly used to, but for this strategy, he really doesn't have a home when it comes to the site. So extending out towards this area, trying to assist Fultz inside of the Astro area.
You're good.
No. Having casted Billy here for a second, my brain just broke for a split second on that blue room. But either way, yeah, holding things down over on the oh my goodness gracious, astronomy side. Anyways, Doki is going to be getting the next frag here onto Bosco. I'm perfectly fine. It's literally just that one room name just escaped my brain. But speaking of escaping things, Blur cannot get away from this frag from Hot.
Good first trade coming out from SSG. Definitely going to stop the flow of momentum here for Na'Vi. But irregardless of that fact, Na'Vi are still at the gates in a lot of ways for SSG's defense itself. But SSG still has a few tricks up their sleeve here, as we can see. Hot and still maintaining the position downstairs as the roaming Mira looks to try and pick up a potential flank angle here at some point in the late round. Now from Na'Vi seems to be somewhat aware that is going to start to open up some of these top-down angles as they try to interface for the central hallway here, just to make sure they don't get tripped up by that type of a flank. Just as I was talking about there for Hot and Cold, we can see all this utility as well. These ADSs,
like, what?
It's just eating up everything around the corner here. Doki finally just going to take a step back. He's like, all right, I've had enough of this. And is going to move forward up to death's door.
This is absolutely ridiculous. We cannot be dealing with this. They finally get some red control. That's a positive. We're also going to have some impact tricking going on inside of Gunfall, so that will lock things up here. And I don't believe that they have any extra, so that last Selma from Secretly will work out and create another area for them to be able to work with, making life a little bit more difficult for SSG here. But they've done a very good job of delaying, but that doesn't mean that Na'Vi still can't strike true, as they have gotten themselves set up pretty damn well on the red side of the building here. Simply waiting to see when they can push for bust here and try and go in and get this plant down on the actual gun vault door. As we were talking about previously, that's what this strategy centralizes around. Have they done enough damage to prevent this from going on? Concussion now, no attempt on the plant just yet, and some big kills coming through for Na'Vi. It's only Rampy to try and thrive in this situation. He wins the initial frag out, and oh no, he's got to hold on to it. He's got to land his shots as well. Can he get it? No, he can't. He moves around. I was actually in the same boat there for a split second as he was staring dead center of his head and just simply thought he couldn't see him, but no. Not the case at all, and Na'Vi get away with the bag.
Nice quick adjustment. I believe that was Nath doing the planting there just to make sure that they didn't get tripped up by that last member of SSG. Very clean stuff, especially after they had gotten the side gun vault door open, or wall rather, opened up for themselves. Unfortunately, there just wasn't enough room left for SSG to be able to properly defend themselves, and that combined on top of the nice early entries that Doki as well as the rest of Na'Vi were able to leverage for themselves just made it too much control for SSG to deal with there. So they take a solid first round over an AVG. We are going to see an immediate switch of the site for SSG, though, as they'll head downstairs into dining and kitchen for their second attempt.
Yeah, and just so you know, the whole astronomy thing is because I got to that point, and then my brain was like, Aquarius! Like, it was just like astronomy signs. And I was like, why?
That happens. It's all good.
Makes for some funny moments, though, always. SSG, though, going to be headed down towards the kitchen. Really like this idea with their change-up, especially in the utility department. Bosco going to be rocking the pulse for this one. Still using the ADSs of Jaeger, as well as Womai, just to make Na'Vi's life a little bit more difficult. You guys saw how much utility. They had to burn around red the last time, and really if SSG had any more strength in numbers, that round really could have went lopsided for them.
Absolutely the case there, especially if the denial was able to go off successfully for the second and third time there, but obviously the utility that Na'Vi had outpaced that with which SSG was able to bring to the table themselves, so made the situation just a little bit awkward for them. Na'Vi ready to deploy once again, though we'll see what exactly they're going to be able to bring out this time. SSG creating a real bunker for themselves on the inside of Astro in the meanwhile here. All three of the walls getting reinforced, as well as quite a bit of utility deployed to assist with the extended hold into that room.
I want to make sure that Na'Vi are not allowed to exist inside of Master, at least with somebody bearing down on top of them, so they'll have to find an answer to this eventually, but it doesn't seem like they even want to start off on that side. Instead, it's directly into study. This is something that, well, it's usually common in this area. It really depends on what you want to do with the map. It looks like they want to go for the full clear, and we'll have to see how SSG want to handle this. Obviously, once they start to see some of these default cameras go down, the jig will be up, and more than likely see SSG try and reconcile with this.
Doki quickly sweeping through AVG will find no resistance in that neighborhood from SSG. As he starts to creep out into the central hallway once again, though, things will get a little bit different. From downstairs' perspective, Bosco does have the intel onto him right now, coming out from that heartbeat sensor. Doki not going to press forward just as of yet, though. Checks the corner for himself with the drone toss out here. Does, I believe, have the clone ready to throw out too if he really wants to try and look for intel, but definitely won't want to detach himself too far from the rest of his team, as he is very much alone right now in his current quest. So starting to move a little bit more towards the Master clear and the Astro clear in order to regroup with the rest of his teammates and start making a more of a conjoined push.
Na'Vi starting to get some information here from Doki. Says Gemini hologram will go down. Na'Vi trying to push forward and deal with faults here inside of Astronomy, folks, as he will be holding down on the shield. Doki still has to worry about one on his Astro stairs, though, as well, so he'll hop back inside of the shower. Doesn't want to try and risk anything just yet, but is he aware of the shark in the water down low in the likes of Bosco? Simply waiting with this Nitro cell for anyone to stand still for too long, and it's going to be Doki to fall first.
Doki waiting too long, unfortunately, inside of that Master bathroom position there. Finally allows for the pulse to get a lock onto that player. Bosco feels he's not going to move for quite some time, and he's right to assume so. Blur moving in there does trip up the motion sensors, though, so they're going to be aware of the fact that he's in here, but it doesn't matter. Blur still 6 and 8 against Faults, deals with the rest of the Astro presence. Blur able to leverage himself another one as well. Hot and cold, going to get caught in the top-down angle, and that's a massive lead now going into Na'Vi's favor at a 4v3.
SSG end up making those vertical angles to try and prevent any hard destruction going down on those walls, but instead it immediately counters out their own play. They lose one of those impactful players in the likes of Hot and Cold. This top clear ends up working out for Na'Vi, just in the likes of giving away Doki. But it doesn't mean that they can't get this done going forward. Priority on Laundry right now. We'll start breaking that up with Selma charges. As for the rest of SSG, though, we still have Nade over inside of Mud, as well as some others spinning around the area. Bosco currently the only one inside of sight, as Rampy's currently center hall, headed back into Tarbs.
Rampy continuing to wait for opportunities to try and strike against this Na'Vi aggression, which has stalled a little bit here while they check the final things they'll have time to do as they approach the 15-second marker, though. They now need to move in, but this is when SSG can thrive. If they haven't figured out the positions of these players, they could be a complete surprise to Na'Vi when they try to move into the site. We're already seeing an example of that with the first pick. They got to re-equalize it. Nath trades it back once again, though, but where is the execute? We're not seeing it yet. Another pickup from Blur. Bosco's still alive, and he just has to deny that. Succeeds in picking it up, and we'll see the round go over to SSG.
The game sense on that man knows no bounds, and it shows here once again. He's the only one inside of sight, and he's the only one needed for SSG to win that kitchen defense. Fantastic from him, and SSG will definitely be thankful. It's 1-1 right now in between the two, as Na'Vi have a pretty solid clear and understanding of what was going on upstairs. Just a little bit of a mishap when it came down to getting that plant down. Everyone prioritizing that top floor to try and make sure that nobody can get back into sight, but they weren't worried about the man that was actually playing in there.
Certainly the case there. Na'Vi doing every single checkbox and working their way through every single issue they would have had to face in that round, except for the final one. That last player able to leverage finally a denial against the plants and pick up the round for SSG instead. Obviously, the site, with it being a successful defense for SSG, is going to continue to shift. So we're back upstairs, not going to be going for AVG again. It's unfortunate that site just did not play out too well for them. Na'Vi was able to take far too quick of a control of the overall map away from SSG. It really seemed like a site that they were too confident in rerunning. So instead, we're going to head towards the other one here in Trophy and Statuary. We are going to see the return, however, of the Tachanka. Fultz to bring that back, as the delay is very much needed again.
And we're more than likely going to start see him a lot more often inside of this tournament because of his recent buff. Obviously, everyone knows about the change changes with his fire grenades now not having a turret. But the fire grenades are actually pretty sick, as Rampy's going to pick himself up a drone, but they've recently buffed it to where the radius is better, as well as he gets more of them overall. He did have 10, he now has 14, and the DP-27, that LMG that he has and now carries, instead of it being mounted, does more destructive damage. As you can see, it works extremely well.
I just kind of giggling there, Rampy. Really happy he got that drone. There was like a big smile on his face when he was able to pick that one up. But either way, though, that'll be some nice intel that SSG can try to use inside of probably the early round more than anything. They could set that up as a preset drone for themselves and try to get some better intel as to Navi's early initial push here before that drone eventually gets taken down. Either way, though, Doki's still going to be leading the charge, as you might expect for Navi, approaching that laundry doorway and probably going to be moving in relatively quickly. Not the only one to take some early map control, though. It looks like Blur will be doing some adventuring of his own, and so will Nath upstairs.
Well, currently sitting up, or at least setting up, on the top floor here. One of the prioritized things for Master is Rampy might have his own disengaged 1v1 here. It's these two locked inside the basement. It's Saves, who's worked his way in through one of the wine barrels down low, but neither of them wanting to waltz forward just yet, as it's a very, very risky choice here. This entire basement is basically a labyrinth, and at any moment someone can make a major mistake. Speaking of mistakes, though, not from Na'Vi. Frag grenade out, and it'll down Nate inside of sight.
So thinking Nate going to go down here. Not going to be able to capitalize and actually fully kill just yet. So depending on how close he is, yep, will be able to be retrieved, thankfully, by another member of SSG, keeping them the full 5-player strength. Obviously, with thinking Nate's still heavily injured from the previous fight. Nath as well, trying to isolate out where this Electric Claw is going to be positioned at. It is not going to be an easy task in any way. And you can see that red silhouette. Someone from SSG might try to poke back into this angle a moment or two later if he's not too careful. So Nath will have to be very cautious watching this out. I do think that is the one that is like slightly above where you put the wall.
Beam. So there's a beam. If we get back in perspective, there's a beam up here that actually you can toss it above it. Oh, Bosco just did it. Dang it. Anyways, it doesn't matter. There's some beams up above in the ceiling that you're able to get them up above the beam, and you no longer have an angle to try and get rid of it. So it just makes it really, really difficult to try and get these walls, and this is exactly what SSG has set this up for. Look at the time sink right now for Navi. They're trying to get an answer here. It's the frag grenade out. Does it get it done? It does. Blur sends it high enough, and now it's down to the impacts, and those will work out as well. Another Selma down, and well, in comes the exchanges of utility down to the last Selma charge here and the last piece of hard breach for Navi.
That one kind of gets snuck in because there's so much noise pollution going on in the inside of that fight right there that they're able to get that third one on the wall. That one will at least open things up. But the first kill of the round at 35 seconds is going to go to Bosco. Doki, meanwhile, is on a mad chase against someone here. I do believe it's Rampy on the other side of this one, but can Doki find him? There we go. Jeez. Ran about halfway through the map before Doki finally capitalized upon it. Ball's going to be a little bit too slow, so Bosco will be able to react, but Blur comes in just as quickly inside of Master back to make up for that one as well, bringing us down to what is now a 3v2 after thinking Nate has fended off the most recent kill, taking Saves down trying to push in. Blur wants to wrap on the main door. He knows he's got thinking Nate right here and is going to find a very nice shot to finish him off. Now it's down to just Blur and secretly here trying to push in against Houghton as well as Fultz. First plant attempt going down onto the ground. No nitros to stop this, so Houghton will have to get aggressive. Can't get it done though because there's support coming in from Blur on the other side of the wall. Plant goes onto the ground. Fultz cannot kill Blur as he transitions through the breach as well. So it's an outright 1v2. Fultz has to try and work it. He's got a big gun for the job as well. Let's see if he can get it done as he starts to wrap out towards Connector first, then to the inside now towards Statuary, but secretly reads into this, goes even further back. Fultz will lose a massive amount of HP as Blur takes a chunk off of him through the breach once again. The same thing can be said for Secretly now as he takes the engagement, and finally Blur finishes it off for Navi.
Such a difficult task there for SSG to try and reclaim that round, and Fultz as well, sitting on some utility there. Still 2 of those flame grenades in his pocket that he could have used for denial, but it was risky. As we saw, Navi had a very solid overwatch from Master that ended up getting them the round. Blur standing tall inside of round 3.
So with Navi once again continuing to excel here, they take the lead. A small one, yes, but one they'll certainly be willing to try and excel upon here in future rounds as well. They're able to leverage a lot of that great early control for themselves, even though sometimes losing the opening pick there as well. Navi, you're still taking a solid amount of map control, moving through this and ultimately finding the best out of SSG here so far. But let's see once again if SSG can change their own fate as we're going back to where they started over here in AVG.
And just to point it out right now, Blur having an amazing game. Only 3 rounds played thus far, and he has 7 kills. He's doing fantastic. And across the fence, SSG, a rough shot right now. Rampy 0 and 3 as well as Fultz. And those are 2 players that we expect a lot more out of.
We'll see if SSG can continue to pick up the slack. Obviously, very early days as far as this match is concerned. Plenty of opportunities for both teams to either continue to excel or rebound from the current deficit that they are facing here. A whole lot in the change-up's going to be coming into the fold here for SSG. I do believe re-adding the Jaeger is going to add a little bit more mitigation for the squad here as well, but it's still going to have to work their way past all of this hard destruction, which unfortunately opened up far too much of the site the last time it was played by SSG here, as Navi was able to take a lot of that early control from the north and sweep their way down with relative ease. Let's see if it'll be the same thing on this round here.
Yeah, very low time and also able to clear out the bomb site. That was the other thing. It came down to Rampy trying to just hightail it up red stairs and find any frags that he could. Wins the initial fight, but besides that, they couldn't get anything else done as the plant was going down right on the inside the gun fault door. But now Navi out and onto the field. About 30 seconds have already went by, but Navi haven't moved too far forward. Currently just trying to deal with the setup that is currently on main stairs. Rampy will be here in tow, continually throwing out these Wamai discs and trying to limit Navi's time.
Yeah, Safe's trying to get more survivability for himself there. He's able to chuck out those lifelines and deal with at least with some of the magnets that's deployed for Rampy on the staircase, but he's got more ready to throw out there, so he'll still be able to maintain that position. Continue to see.
We shoot back here, baby.
He's like, yes, I'm here. Hello. Anyway, Blur now starting to work on the study window to push himself forward. You can see still maintaining a position here is going to be Rampy. He has a lot of support. You can see Fultz helping him out, as well as Houghton from up on top of the corner bookcase here. So he's not too worried about a potential swing from study. Only when he has to pay attention to that push from down the stairs, which we might be getting a little bit of that now here. Fultz as well, still with 10 of these charges to utilize, and only a minute and a half left on the clock as well. Fultz is probably going to continue to pepper this out and deny the access for Navi as they try to encroach on the staircase.
Navi just locked in between a rock and a hard place now, trying to figure out exactly what they can possibly do. These ADS is eating things up, and that's going to be a freebie for Rampy. Doki just overextending down low, and now look, trying to work in through these flame grenades, but it's just too difficult. Ends up getting downed here, and Fultz will end up killing him with Tachanka's utility. Now Navi, worse for wear than ever, down to a 3 versus 5.
We said they're starting to put pressure on to study now, but there's already so much support set up for that, not to mention the fact that SSG can still fire back from inside of the site using the mirror window they set up for themselves as well. This is a tough cookie to crack for Navi. Definitely would have been better way to try and put pressure on the other side of the map, because there's nowhere near the defensive matrix set up for SSG over there, but it's too late really to change that up now. They're at too much of a player deficit. They seem to be locked into this strategy, and it only seems to push things further and further into the favor of SSG. Nice attempt at a nade pick there, but it is read by Bosco, and he's able to get out of the way of that.
This is just such a beautiful setup here from SSG. I mean, the utility usage right now especially just making Navi's life so very difficult. Rampy's still here. He'll take one. Can he get the second? Oh, of course he can. There you go. 2 quick headshots. SSG, a flawless round on their AVG defense.
Easy stuff for SSG, as unfortunately for Navi, they walk right into this absolutely impenetrable setup on the main staircase, as well as extending that out into study with the support from inside of the site as well. Very little pressure, if any at all, coming in from the north side of the map, which was much less defended. And that was the route that Navi took successfully to win the first round on this site back in round number 1. This time, though, not the case, and SSG are able to easily shut down every attempt to get aggressive there.
I just absolutely love the bookshelf setup. I'll be really honest with you. That entire setup right there was masterfully done. And the biggest thing is that's an adaptation of something that's been going on for a very long time around that area, especially back in the day with Goyo. That's something that we'd see very often. Deployable shield there, deployable shield pointing towards 90. You'd play that area with one of the panels down for bar, and that would be your rotation. If you had to get back into sight, you'd walk back in, slam the wall up, and you're good to go inside a site now. But instead for this, they have it as a layered event, obviously with Fultz playing down low with the disc, or Rampy playing down low with the disc, excuse me. Fultz playing back on the Tachanka and holding on to his staircase with that utility, preventing that space for Navi. And the other thing is that Navi eventually got used to those fire grenades being there. They didn't think any of the SSG members are going to try and push through, and that's exactly what happens. Instead, Rampy starts taking gunfights, and he ends up getting a triple inside of that round, all from one position.
A position that Navi knew full well he was in, trying to take him down those 3 separate times. Unfortunately, just couldn't detach him from that spot. Couldn't remove the support that was constantly rolling in from Fultz as well. So SSG easily shut that one down. A lot more support going to be coming in from Fultz this time, though. He brings the Yokais into the fold this time around for the first floor defense, as they do still have to play that extended game upstairs for this site, considering the amount of top downs that can be opened up by Navi if they're allowed to take the AVG rooms for free. Obviously, those sites, or those rooms, I should say, not playing into the site this time, but still very, very important for SSG's defense and Navi's attack.
Well, SSG able to bring it back and tie things up here. How does Na'Vi want to try and change things up? Throw a curveball at SSG and try and get another one of these rounds on the board. This site, extremely unique as well, one that we don't get to see often enough, I would say. Library, as well as family room or living room, excuse me. But either way, though, Na'Vi are going to have to prioritize this top floor and trying to break up these walls. It honestly depends on how they want to try and take this. Doki is simply just waltzing in, and I was about to say, very straightforward. I mean, just walks in and Nate and everybody knew. That was about it. Yep. Kind of a misplay there from Na'Vi, but I think Doki assumed that he could catch somebody off guard.
Also going to continue to wait things out down here on the inside of the living room itself. No pressure against him just as of yet, although we will start to see a bit of it deploy for Na'Vi as they have taken the north control over towards Astro. Lots more work to be done, though, before they can even get close to the site here. Fultz continuing to just patiently wait, as we said before. That pressure on the inside of AVG is fairly non-existent here. And Na'Vi seems far more concerned with what's going on down on the outside of the kitchen entryway, as well as the bottom of Astro's stairs. They can name with some good intel there as well in terms of what's going on in the central hallway, as Blur now tries to round the corner here with the nade in hand, but is not going to be able to.
Really bad.
Yeah, one more little arc in the wrong way there. We could have ended up with a very nasty team kill, and thankfully we avoided that fate this time around.
That would have been a pretty cool trick shot at the end of the day, though. But Fultz is going to be able to get one of his own as well. That'll be Nath going down, so the buck now gone, and just simply holding things down up top. This is why when it comes to this site, we see a lot of teams end up just splitting it right at the 90 hallway, and then start prioritizing working living room and getting those two panels open next to the fireplace, and start looking for plants around that area, because it's difficult to try and crack this top hold sometimes, and SSG are definitely putting the pressure onto Na'Vi. They don't really have an answer for this. Drone out, and a free fire here from Saves. He'll get it with the LMG, and still plenty of bullets to play with, so he'll continue on.
Na'Vi are holding on here, although they're still going to be down by another player with Saves' most recent pickup. He might go for a second, but never mind. Thinking Nade will get his instead, and now tries to prepare, but no. Blur, and the worst part is Blur goes back for seconds after taking that huge chunk of damage. Fultz will, of course, accept that willingly, secretly now moving in. He will also more likely be challenged here by Thinking Nade or another member of the SSG roster in just a moment. The only player left standing, full intel is already on him as well. You can see those yellow pings on the ground, and somehow an impact killed him.
Impacted through the floor off the yellow ping.
He yoinked the kill right at the end of the round. Oh, no.
Look at him. He's just smiling. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, great stuff there from SSG. The vibes are high, and that's what you want for your squad when you're playing such a competitive match like this. Na'Vi, though, now down for the very first time here and need to try and fight back. Tie things up here, make their defenses a little bit easier. Although SSG looking very solid on their defenses thus far, I really do not like Na'Vi's choice to try and clear out that top floor.
No, neither do I. Unfortunately, a little bit too haphazard, especially with the early clear for Doki himself. They're just kind of going off on his lonesome. And I'll be honest and say that that has been working in past rounds, giving him that kind of unrestricted freedom to make those plays, but it really seems like he needs to be just a little bit more careful about it here against specifically these more stronger bunker SSG setups like we saw there on that last round.
Or honestly, just a little bit more respect as to what's going on with the setup, because that yokai camera set at the top of red the entire time, and you're just like, hey, he walked in.
No one ever caught it.
He just walked in, shoot him in the face. Oh, okay, cool. And he stood up and shot him. That was it. So like, trust me, I understand the aggression, especially for Na'Vi, and I like it. I just think that they need to make sure that they check a couple of things before they go for this. But obviously, the thing there being that Doki saw an opportunity, and he simply went for it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. That's the nature of the beast.
So, for the Na'Vi roster, looking to make impact one more time to keep this at an even scoreline at halftime. As we have the final round of the half in front of us right now. For SSG, though, it'll be an opportunity for them to take the outright lead here at 4-2 and set themselves up for a potential easy win if they can control half of the next half, with only 3 rounds being needed for them there. Nath, as well as one other player from Na'Vi, going to start things out with a little bit of pressure, working their way into Study. There is resistance on this from Hot and Cold setup with the mirror window as well. So right from the beginning, Na'Vi are going to be facing issues.
It's been a slow start for Houghton as well, especially in contrast to how he has been playing in recent history, which has been lights out. So we'll see if he does pick it up here. But SSG have been very solid across the board here. Impactful frags for all of these players, but the same can be said for Na'Vi. Secretly hasn't been able to get onto the board yet, but that hard destruction roll, sometimes very, very difficult to play. And oh man, Rampy, so much damage dealt to him, but I think he's not going to check. He won't. Saves a freebie in passing.
Saves a nice pickup there. Puts a dent in the defense here for SSG for sure. And you can already tell there's been a pretty tectonic shift in the way that Na'Vi are approaching these first minutes or so of the round here. Nath as well with the lineup. He can't find the headshot though on the rappel. Has to back away to save his own life. And Hot and Cold will just breathe a sigh of relief that that didn't go worse for him.
Absolutely. Could have went a heck of a lot Worse there, but anyway, able to maintain his life as Doki starts to propel himself forward from Piano. Frag grenade out, but it's not going to land on anything. Navi simply trying to find where the rest of these SSG members are. A little worried about some roamers still possibly being around here. Also, Doki not prioritizing using the Gemini, instead clearing this with his actual body, which perfectly okay, especially since we're able to cheat and see that there's literally no one down here, meaning no threat to our Yana. But E1D's out now for Navi is, well, Lion, one of their go-to operators when things get hairy.
See the time starting to dwindle a little bit more. Definitely not into a dangerous territory as of yet, but Navi need to make more of it. Doki has just found a great opportunity to do that. Thinking Nate, getting caught by the pressure in Library, focuses on that, and unfortunately is going to fall to the press into the pantry here from Doki. Doki not moving out past that just yet. It doesn't seem like the team is fully ready to commit to an execute here, as also they have Blur on the ground, possibly as a result of that fight from earlier. Nitro gonna get chucked out, though. They tried to shoot it, but it's not gonna pan out. Bosco finishes off Blur with that piece of utility, and SSG slowly start to battle back here. Low to 3v4. They're going to have to be careful yet again.
Oh, there's so many different ways that this could break down. Doki's positioning so very important to what's happening for Navi right now. They completely wrap themselves around this side as we begin to break up some walls. I believe they just got Pantry there as Hot and Cold is going to end up losing his life. SSG trying to fight back. Fultz end up taking out the hologram as secretly will start to plant on the Pantry single panel. And that's going to end up going through as well as Doki will take down Fultz inside of sight. It's left up to Bosco to try and prevent Navi from tying things up, but it's going to be very easy, very straightforward for Navi as they take this last round.
Navi a much cleaner affair there coming in once again, able to capitalize upon some of the earlier movements from SSG that time around. Instead of just waltzing right into the setup, they wait for SSG to make the first strike there and try to capitalize upon that by firing back themselves, and that works out fairly well, setting things up for a 5v3 pretty much right from the beginning of the round and slowly working the numbers down from there as well as leveraging site control. Great stuff from Navi, and they tie us up at 3-3 now as the teams switch sides. We'll be going back to an AVG hold for Navi's first defense.
Yeah, shout out to Doki for being the playmaker there as well, because that was a necessity inside of that round. They needed somebody to start applying some pressure to SSG inside of sight and force them to try and answer some of these calls that Navi were making, and that's where we saw a lot of these frags start to pour in. So really, really solid round there for them that leads us into this tie. But now obviously we're going to be switching gears here. Navi will be on defense, SSG on offense, and let's take a look at these operator lineups. First things first, Navi will be headed to AVG. Their setup looking somewhat similar to what SSG had going on.
Yeah, definitely the case, especially when we just talk about just the Tachanka setup here, but we're also going to get even more forms of the utility that SSG were bringing to the table. For instance, the Echo still coming back into the fold here for Nap. So not only you're going to have the delay that can come from just the almost infinite, seemingly, spam of those incendiary grenades that you can chuck down the staircase, and probably going to see a pretty similar setup overall to what we were seeing out of SSG on this staircase, but they can also gain that same intel that they were using from the Yokais on the round after that, which also was a massive deficit to Navi's overall attack.
Okay, well, SSG going to be out and onto the field for the very first time here on offense. And taking a look at their operator lineup, they are going to be bringing Rampy on the Jackal. This is something that we did not see Navi try to allocate to themselves. So we a change up here, as well as the air jabs being brought by Bosco. So this is going to make things a little easier for SSG. Don't have to worry so much about that flank. You can keep guns up towards the faces of Navi.
Still going to be quiet here in the early days of the round. SSG just trying to figure out what exactly they need to expect when it comes to the aggressive early game from Navi. They do find out Blur very quickly over on the Astro Stairs position. He'll decide not to stick around as it's far too risky of a fight. And if you guys were paying attention, you'll notice he had virtually zero support from anybody else on his team. You could see that with all the silhouettes way out in the distance there. So Blur making the right choice in the long run instead of taking out a bit of a risk on what could have been an instant death for him.
Yeah, at that moment in time, it's if you stay around, you're practically inting at that moment. So let's not do that. Let's try and prolong our lives and make sure that we have the utility going into the halfway point and later into the round where it can have a larger impact over what's going on. As for SSG, though, it's to the drone game right now, trying to get some information as to where these Navi members lie. Already some yellow pings going out, but no control down low to really abuse that if that was what the plan was originally. But still just some solid information overall here as Navi are simply waiting to see what SSG want to do with this bus door. They've got 90 control here, but they have to worry about secretly as well, so they'll be manning a shield farther down the hallway.
Attackers have recovered.
Colts also still waiting to see if there's going to be any more swung pressure sent out against him from deeper inside of the site, but yet to see that deployed out just as of yet. Navi still full control over the situation here. They do real. Okay, Doki, where did those kills come from? A double against both Bosco and Rampy. As it appears, he gets aggressive over by Death's Door. Now, Fultz will be able to trade things back as he approaches that same position. Still has to recover the diffuser here, though. Thankfully, no one keeping Overwatch on that, but the massive damage done to their roster, they're going to try to make up for it now with just outright aggression. In come the nades to hopefully allow them through. Fultz as well, keeping quick presence on here. Blur, though, ready for the aggression on the other side of the map, coming in from Thinking A, but Fultz still making forward momentum here. Unfortunately, as he gets stunned out by the Yokai, that will enable the trade to come in yet again from Blur and leave Hot and Cold alone in the 1v3. Naf still here to support with the Yokai. He knows Hot and Cold's right at Death's Door, ready to push in here. This will be a tough ask.
Difficult road for Hot and Cold, but we've seen him here before. Doesn't mean that it's impossible, but definitely going to be a difficult situation, especially with Nath constantly pouring in these sonic charges from the Yokai. Every single door now being manned by a Na'Vi member. Pushing forward is Doki, down to 1 HP. Hot and Cold with the secondary. He'll get the initial one, but no frag coming through yet. Oh, right into the neck bone of Nath. Not able to aim high enough to get that headshot. Unfortunate, but a tall ask, like you were talking about before. Great round there from Na'Vi, specifically Doki. Just dagger right to the heart of SSG at the very moment they were going to start moving forward.
It's just that aggression that I don't think SSG were expecting. Like we said, we did actually get to catch it on the camera, unfortunately, but definitely came out in that Death's Door position to shut down so many different players of SSG and causing a panic, trying to go for that forward execute in through Death's Door regardless to make up the difference, but obviously did not pan out as they were very much ready for the assault there. We're going to go into an SSG tactical timeout. Things are starting to get a little bit rough, and obviously at the start of the half there, they were looking for a strong position to keep themselves in control of the lead. Did not happen. They're now falling behind. They need to figure out why. They need to figure out quickly, as Navi's only 3 rounds away from victory now.
And this is a perfect use of the tactical timeout here from Lycan. Get to talk to these players, see what's going to go on for the rest of these offenses, because as we were talking about, the aggression from Na'Vi, very calculated in what they're doing right now. A heck of a lot better than what we saw with that push up into AVG in that area with Doki originally. His aggression is really, really working out now. It's basically in spades at this moment for them, so they definitely need an answer.
Definitely need to see that coming in over the next few rounds here for sure, but they've been isolating these rounds back and forth and back again against the Na'Vi roster here. SSG, just a little bit of trouble finding that solid footing to work off of on their opening attack there, especially with the somewhat seemingly random, or I guess wild would be a more appropriate word, counter-aggression that came out from Doki to immediately shut them down. So just a moment to rebreathe here, reset themselves as well. Also cools off Na'Vi a little bit, has that adverse effect for them. Since they're getting amped up themselves, they're starting to rebound quite nicely. Not only did they retie things at that final round of the half, but also taking the first one of the second half finally puts them in a leading position, which they've been looking for a large majority of this map.
Yeah, able to negotiate forward initially, but SSG fighting back, making life difficult for them on their defenses, or excuse me, their offenses, but their defenses now looking very, very nice. The big thing here, obviously, for SSG is dealing with this aggression. I think that there's definitely a way for them to do it, and honestly, it's just expectations. That's the biggest thing. You need to stay gun up and be prepared for them to go with these pushes, as well as having the Nomad locked up here. That's a huge, huge boon for them. I think it's going to make them very successful going forward, depending on how they use these air jabs. Also be looking out for Rampy, what he can possibly get done with these Jackal tracks, and just trying to find a few of these Na'Vi members that are circulating the map.
All right, guys, well, the time has expired for SSG. Back in we go to the game. Round number 8 in front of us here now. And we'll get to see if there's going to be any interesting choices on the operator side of things. Fairly standard composition for both teams here. Even Doki with the pulse pick there, quickly swapping that back out towards a Jaeger, as will fall in line with what we've seen from comps in the past here.
And as you can see, Tachanka just still getting so much play in between these two.
For the two upstairs sites, you kind of have to, right? Because smoke is so necessary for the delay tactics that usually come into play on that site. You kind of need to replace it in some way, shape, or form. And for Nath, it's obviously going to be Tachanka, as he's the most comparable operator at this point in time.
Yeah, literally the only difference being that it's not smoke, it's fire.
Yeah.
So that's really it.
It's got to be a little bit more in prime position to be able to utilize those nades compared to smoke as well, where you get a lot of freedom to just chuck it in from the back of the room.
I feel like a lot of people are still learning how to use his utility as well. You know, in comparison to smoke, I mean, like, yeah, smoke hasn't changed in the past for the way that you use his utility, because back in the day, you used to chuck it like, I don't even know, man. It's like you had no muscles in your arm. You basically just like dropped it on the floor. I don't even know what. I don't even know how that happened. Yeah, but then what the greatest part is when they did the initial update, John, you were literally Tom Brady. Like, you could
I remember
chuck
that.
those things.
I remember that with the Valk camps.
Oh, man, I missed that so much. I hope some of you guys in chat remember that as well, because it was a great time to play Siege.
Every time the round started on console, I was like, oh,
dude,
get those out the
you'd be
window.
on border and you just hit like one of the security towers outside. It's like chuck that thing all the way at the top.
Well, here we go. Saves already close to taking contact against a member of SSG. Backs away from the position very quickly, though, after not meeting with much success against Fultz. But that will still cause some hesitation for Fultz, and he'll waste away at least a couple of seconds here while he makes sure that that is clear before moving in. Hot and Cold also quickly getting up onto the 90 rappel, starting to put that additional pressure onto the team here as they work their way forward and start to set themselves up to begin moving into the building and taking that additional map control away from Navi. Navi did initially have some aggressive pressure over here towards AVG, but it looks like they've just abandoned it entirely after the first minute of the round has gone by and are now playing into their actual site defense.
Well, this is going to be positive for SSG here. They don't overstep early inside of that engagement, so they're going to be able to not only maintain their full health, but their full roster as well. As for Navi, they've backed things off. As John was talking about previously, this is going to give SSG the capability to push through AVG and start getting some priority around this red stairwell, as well as working benches and things along those lines. Navi simply waiting to see what SSG's next move is going to be, but they still have a long road ahead of them before it's execute time. So to get these air jabs set up and honestly start trying to negotiate for a peg.
You can see here for Bosco, one of the first players to try and shift around, and definitely on a bit of the front lines here for SSG, but other players taking up that mantle in even stronger forms here as they continue to take up positions here. Definitely not leaning into the execute just as if yet, but there we go. There's the start of it now as Hot and Cold is able to find one for himself. Outside on the balcony too, catching secretly on the Cade and hopefully removing that capability to re-electroclaw the wall if he was keeping the second one in his pocket.
Yeah, this makes it a much more straightforward here for SSG as, well, we have Doki pretty unoptimal position, and that's exactly why the Crossfire is coming in a plethora of frags for SSG. Navi in such a poor position right now. The frags have got to come in right now in the moment, or otherwise SSG is more than likely going to overwhelm them. Saves and Nath, the only two that remain. Nath currently inside of the bathroom with Saves playing the trophy side frag grenade out.
No.
Nath's going down.
He doesn't even try to stop
very
it.
unfortunate. Nate will end up getting that frag, and now Saves into the 1v5. He'll start off strong though. He'll take down Hot and Cold as the plant starts on concrete. Nobody wanted to try and fight back. Saves gonna have to get a new magazine inside of this Roni before he re-engages. Switches over to the Master Clauses. He'll simply be holding the angle, but it's going to be the same on both sides. They want to get this case down and propel us forward into the post plant. Now for Saves, it's all left up to him to try and win this out.
Saves not with a whole lot of intel to play off here at this point either, and there you go. You're going to see the results of that. Fultz immediately on the hard corner, ready to shut him down as soon as he makes the swing from the inside of Master. He takes control. SSG take control of that one and put another round on the board for themselves.
Super, super solid round there from SSG. Cool, calm, and collected, and they achieved everything that they needed to. The other thing there being that they were able to walk Navi back early on inside of the round and kind of force them into a haphazard defense. Just playing a lot more close to the chest and trying to play around that area and play spoils, just trying to catch SSG off guard, but that was definitely not the case. A lot of frags, especially from Houghton coming into the Master area with Navi overextended.
So for Navi, tying things up at 4-4 here, or rather having things get tied up against them at 4-4, is going to continue to put that additional pressure onto them as they shift towards another site into the dining room and kitchen. Finally going to start to see more interesting evolutions in the operator lineup here for Navi. And Goyo going to be brought in for what I believe will be the first time inside of this map. Also going to see the Legion brought out for the first time by Navi, and obviously the Frost coming out there too to try and block access to the pantry, and quite a few other popular push positions that SSG will be trying to take control over.
And of course, guys, just to remind you, we have some beautiful esports skins inside of our shop in Rainbow Six Siege. Go into the in-game store right now, get some R6 credits, and support your favorite team by buying their esports skin.
So, I'll be just completing those final steps of the setup here, looking for ways that they can try to get the edge over SSG early on, but keep in mind, this was a very passive setup from Navi in the previous round here. They gave up control of their extended play within that first minute of the round, did not try to fight SSG when it came to their extended AVG hold, played it completely onto the site, tried to sit back and wait in there, but that only allowed for basically an infinite amount of time for SSG to spend droning, figuring out what that setup looked like, and coming up with an execute strategy where every player would have a role. And we saw that it was incredibly clean from SSG when they were finally ready to go for the execute. The players on Navi just fell down like dominoes. So we need to see a bit more of an active resistance put up by them this this time.
Absolutely. This is something that we expect out of Na'Vi, and this is how they played the entire game. So for them to be neutered inside of that last round was very, very strange. I want to see if they're able to get back to what they were doing previously here. And, well, that's what you and I are both assuming is going to be the game plan, as it has been working. Just obviously inside of that last round, a couple of mishaps going on. But now about a minute into round 9 here, as SSG are starting to take map control once again. But there are some close Na'Vi members, specifically Saves, who is still up near AVG all on his lonesome.
It's going to be a quiet few moments once again. Here's Na'Vi still taking the passive approach. They can see the extra pressure starting to work its way in. That Nitro going to go sail just a little bit too far. Hot and Cold will just casually watch that one go away. Banks the nade off the corner here. That's going to send the additional pressure from Secretly further back into the site. But keep in mind, he's already been able to deny the opening of the wall here. As he have to try and chuck a nade over the other side. Secretly will have no problems dodging that, though, as he approaches the laundry door once again. It looks like that nade did deal with the mute jammer sitting on the other side. So they're going to be able to open this up and put even more pressure onto Secretly now.
No, Secretly has the toolkit to be able to play this position. This M590, when it's allowed to hold down library door, is just so pivotal. You can take down a multitude of members if they end up handling this situation incorrectly. As for Na'Vi, though, they've been able to prolong their life, all except for Blur, who will go down now. He's going to be the opening kill here, and assuming this is actually going to get traded, and it will, nade will fall, but he's already gotten some of his job done, but now the gunfights are starting to come in very heavily. Rampy's going to get his own kill here onto Nath, but now Rampy going fishing for red stairs. Looking for saves, still holding things down. We saw those vertical angles he was abusing earlier on as well, so I want to allow him to exist here for too long.
Saves continuing to patiently wait that out, paying attention more than anything to the library angle just in case someone from the SSG side is going to try to get aggressive there. But no sign of it as of yet here. SSG continuing to take their time, continuing to use the full stretch of the 40 seconds remaining on the clock with here. Bosco with the push forward, though. That's a great find on to Saves after he spent so long trying to line this up, getting nothing going for himself there. SSG now have the ultimate advantage at a 4v2. They can just trade their way to a win here as long as they're able to make sure that one player goes down, the other one gets the kill. But they might not even need to trade at this point. Secretly, finally getting caught out as he tries to push himself back into the corner of the site. And Toki, man, unfortunate for him. He just looks in the wrong position at the wrong time there, gets a headshot right to his face, and that ends the round dominantly in the favor of SSG yet again.
And Doki just got clotheslined right there. That was very unfortunate for him, but an amazing round here for SSG, and they're checking all the boxes, John. They're making sure to not go forward without making sure that Na'Vi do not have any control around the map to where they could possibly, you know, spoil the situation, get in their path, and really be that obstacle to take away some rounds from SSG here. But these last 2 rounds have been domination from SSG. Na'Vi simply do not have an answer to it. They try to, you know, circle the map yet again here, specifically with Saves, working that top floor a lot. He went all the way from main stairs across the way with a bunch of separate utility being used, with vertical angles upstairs, all of these different things, goes all the way over to hold on to red. He wastes a decent amount of time, but the thing is that SSG already had so many picks that it really didn't matter at the end of the day. They knock it down into a 5 versus 2 in that moment, make it a 5v1 a couple seconds later, and then it's just very straightforward from that moment.
So SSG making some great adjustments ever since the pause, giving props out to Lycan and the rest of the leadership here for SSG for making those adjustments so quickly. After only a single round was lost in the half as well. Pretty much instantaneous change that Na'Vi has not been able to correct as of yet here. We're going back to AVG now, and we can see that usual setup being deployed here. You're going to note a big difference between Na'Vi and SSG setup on this one, and that is that they are not bringing the mirror into the fold, so they don't have as much aggressive capability to swing out, specifically on the study, but in a couple other places too. The very same sort of window, quote-unquote, setup is going to be set up, however, here on the double wall facing study going into aviation itself.
Yeah, luckily enough, the audio is still loud enough to be able to use those flame grenades off of that, so you don't exactly need the mirror window. It's just very helpful when it comes down to manning this bus door that Blur's going through right now, because at any moment in time, you can always just shoot them as well. It just makes it a lot easier overall. But besides that point, SSG now out and onto the field and already inside the map as well in the first 30 seconds. It's going to be Fultz working this from Astronomy. Drone's out already, and you can tell Nath prepared for this. He saw the drone and knows that more than likely somebody is in tow.
Fultz right around the corner. He hears the bullets going off. Nath has no idea what's going on. And
I was wrong.
Fultz just gets a free shot to the head against Nath right there. That's the Yokai drones out too, so a massive piece of utility that SSG's been able to snatch away from Na'Vi.
So those Yokai drones going to be stuck now. Can't go anywhere and also can't use the sonar blast. So have to try and get something else out here to prevent. But Na'Vi obviously still have plenty of control across the entirety of this site. Just Very sad that they lose Nath so early on here. But that means for SSG that they're going to be able to do what they do best and take their time and make sure that they do not overstep and lose any of their members. You can already see SSG starting to get the gears turning here. How do they want to break down this site? They know that Na'Vi are more than likely going to turtle on this, but what's some of the other positioning? Priority right now is going to be study, and I also believe that we actually have a player inside of here currently that actually just ended up leaving.
Bosco and Rampy, though, quickly approaching Death's door here. Blur at the same time, still deep inside of study, but thinking they're going to figure that out right now with his own drone that works its way in there. So that'll still slow his approach down here. The good news is, thankfully, not working with the K, so he can still mess around outside on the rappel. And while he might not be able to directly contribute, he can still obviously work himself in at a later point in the round. The real issue is going to be waiting out all of these incendiaries. Secretly still has 11 of them to deploy here. And with a minute left, if SSG's really only pressure point is going to be towards Death's door, they're going to need to work a little more than that save. Tries to get aggressive to stop the Maverick work that's going on in the gunvault wall in the meanwhile here, but no, instead, it's saves that ends up going down. Thankfully, a little bit of a saving grace comes in from Secretly as he continues to chuck out those incendiaries, but still, SSG continue to frag. 2 more kills on the board for them. It's down to only Secretly and Doki, and now Secretly can't work on the incendiaries anymore. He's got to bring out the big gun here and try to fire back, but he just cannot land the shot. Doki doing a great ping, counters out the first plant attempt, taking down Rampy and putting Na'Vi back into this fight, if only to a slight extent. Secretly still has so much pressure onto him. He goes down. Doki's been tripped up as he tries to work his way back up through the red stairs here. There's just not a lot of play potential for Na'Vi, and unfortunately, it goes the way of SSG yet again there. They take control. They push themselves up on a match point.
SSG are looking unstoppable in the moment. Na'Vi trying everything they possibly can to throw something at SSG that sticks, but constantly one step ahead here. A great pickup early on there as well from Fultz. Read that situation perfectly, and sadly for Nath, just a little bit of a mishap there. Although those yokai still getting some traction in the late game. If you guys saw those yellow pings coming out, that's why those things are so very important in circumstances like that.
So time to see if SSG truly just took control of their attacking side, or if Na'Vi can bring anything to the table to try and leverage things back under their own control. AVG will be potentially the final battleground there as they'll make another attempt on that site. A little bit risky, in my opinion, when you consider what just transpired in the previous round and how single-handedly it went towards SSG there, especially at the end of the round itself, but we'll have to wait and see.
We will have to wait and see, my friend. I think the biggest thing right now is that Secretly really isn't having any effectiveness over Na'Vi's end goal at all. He's able to achieve quite a few of these jobs. Obviously, inside of that last round, he did a pretty bang-up job of being able to deny the door for a while, but besides that point, he's 0-6-3 with 2 plants. He just hasn't been able to get on the board, and they're not getting anything out of him how they would necessarily want to. But for SSG, it's practically even across the board, all of them finding some sort of impact for this roster, whereas for Na'Vi, it's a little more spread.
Certainly the case here, but Na'Vi need to bring it all together now on this round. We need 2 in a row perfectly, and that only gives them overtime as well. Still need the additional 2 beyond that. We need to ensure that Na'Vi can take full control of this matchup and try to push them into a better rating in their group here right now, as SSG still controls the group as of this match starting, with Fury in second place, I do believe, as the other team to make it out into the playoffs. Fultz will be starting things off here with that bit of aggression, just starting to open up the windows more than anything, but the initial pressure from SSG does seem to be leaning quite heavily into the master side of the map to take that away from Na'Vi and work their way down from a north to south clear, as we've seen them do in the past.
And LMG supremacy continuing for the Sophia, by the way. We've seen this from a multitude of people. I think the only person that I've been seeing not rock the LMG is Cyclops' Sophia player. I think that there's might be a little bit of bias since they have an M762 skin, but I'm just saying. Outside of that, though, Blur will actually get the first pick here for Na'Vi. That hasn't happened here in a little while as they start things off right, taking down Fultz.
Going to go quiet for a minute here as SSG try to rebound, figure out what the next steps are going to be. Fult's a very important player to be lost. He was the one, again, sitting on those front line positions and trying to push themselves forward first. No longer can they do that. Nath will be the next target here for Na'Vi that stands in the way of the forward progression from SSG as he holds control over towards 90. Doki nearly getting himself just picked off randomly, it seems, again there, as he gets a massive amount of damage thrown onto him and goes down to just over 25 HP. Bosco will be able to start approaching the Death's Door connector as a result of that fallback, and won't be alone either. The rest of his teammates should be pretty quickly behind here.
Well, biggest issue right now is that not very many explosives available to SSG any longer. They do have some hard breach, but everything else is more or less for flank watch or for that execute utility that we see in the likes of Rampy bringing Ying here. So what is SSG's answer for this? Well, they've already gotten a decent amount of damage off onto Doki, but that's made it to where Na'Vi has been able to at least their tail between their legs and retreat back to site. They can play this out safely, not up until they lose Blur though. Rampy's starting to take a lot of damage as Doki will get yet another one here. Candella's out for Rampy, but things are going to all of a sudden shore up. They do not want to overextend.
Seems Navi able to finally leverage a lot more of their early round aggression into success here. It's causing a much slower push from SSG, but nonetheless, they have approached the site itself. Nath ready for the fight this time, though. He takes down Hot and trying to put pressure up against the site itself, and the same can be said for Bosco, who's nearly been burnt out by the Incendiaries. He's under 25. Now Bosco finally trading one out, but he's lost Rampy in the process. So now Bosco must try to clutch out the 1v3 set before him if he wants to end the game here. And now his opponent's already have full intel on him as well. A bulletproof camera sitting just over there at the library bookcase, or just the bookcase itself in the corner. So Bosco tries to rotate away back over towards Death's Door. This isn't going to be an easy push either. As you can see, the Incendiary still partially blocking the way. Time is also becoming an enemy very quickly, but instead it's going to be secretly just shutting it down with the LMG there as Navi finally take control of another defensive round.
And there we go, secretly getting on the board, but having a lot more influence inside of those fire grenades overall. That was some great play from him, great managing of that utility. And Navi finally able to fire back. They maintain man advantage for the entirety of that round, trading it down into a situation that was practically unwinnable for Bosco. Rampy trying to assist, but too much damage dealt to him, and gunfights just can't go his way. Navi now in striking distance of pushing us to overtime.
One more round is all they need, but keep in mind, just the first loss or second loss, I should say, we've only seen from SSG on the inside of this half, and the first one that we've seen in a very long time. SSG will be looking for a quick rebound. After the last one, they didn't need a pause to re-strategize, but that's how they got that chain of 3 rounds following that. This time, they're going to have to hope that they can make a quick course correction here and catch some of that early aggression from Navi much more proficiently so that they are not slowed down, losing control of Fultz, another very important early round player here, and ultimately leaving them with not enough pressure to get into the site. It's going to be an interesting site to play out for our final round of regulation too. Navi head down into the living room for this last bastion of their defense.
Oh, this could be interesting as well because Hot and Cold is going to be on Maverick, so we could get some interesting lineups coming through here depending on how they want to try and break up this site. But as we talked about before, when it comes to trying to attack this, usually what we see happen is teams cut the map in half right at the 90 hallway. They'll come in from the north, slice it up right here, and then if you want to go down one floor for me, sir, I would greatly appreciate it. But yes, so here, perfect. So the 2 panels on the A side, if you go to the far side of the A side, there's 2 panels there. Yes, those 2 panels right here are usually a priority inside of that setup. They want to make sure that you cannot get any crossfires from upstairs, and they usually end up planting on the other side of the A bomb on like this little cabinet that sits there. So we'll see what SSG want to do with this. They have all means to control any of this at all. The biggest thing obviously here being the air jabs of Bosco.
Yeah, Save's even having the laser gates on one of those 2 walls as well, just to make sure, putting that extra presence there to ensure that no one from SSG can easily sneak through that should someone in the gun vault become concerned with another battle. Obviously blocking off the left side there too as we see that. But already 30 seconds into the main phase of the round here with SSG slowly starting to establish that early positioning. Mind you, of course, no real push is going to be happening for quite some time. This has been a very tense game, and it's going to get even tenser as we now approach the final round of regulation, potentially the first couple rounds of OT. But look at that from Blur. A beautiful lineup. He makes the shot before there's even any breach in the wall as well. Downs Houghton, not able to confirm him just as of yet, and obviously there's going to be a massive amount of overwatch in that window now, so I think he's missed his chance here. But still, it's still going to cause a massive time sink, as well as the damage onto Hot and Cold, as he'll only have 20 HP after his retrieval.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue for Houghton is, especially with the utility that he has to put himself in the line of fire in order to achieve a lot of his jobs. So for him, this is more than likely going to be a difficult round going forward. For the rest of SSG, though, that doesn't mean that they're out of it. They'll have frag grenades and everything else to be able to clean up a lot of this utility that they are indeed worried about. Navi's still trying to figure out exactly what's going to go on with this SSG attack as, well, it is indeed unorthodox, but that doesn't mean that it won't work. The other thing that we were just talking about is simply the default way that people handle this, and obviously SSG is an immensely great team. This is something that they have practiced a multitude of times as they're actually going to wrap around this top area, so it looks like they want to attempt to clear it as well.
Thinking he's starting to check out the actual aviation site itself. He tries to move forward here, avoiding these mute jams at the same time. We'll get the positional info onto Saves here, but the drone goes down pretty much immediately after that. Bolt's still walking up on a free kill against Blur right here. Still has his back turned, worried about what's down the 90 hall or potentially over at the bookcase in the corner here. Fultz using the lifeline to deal with the charge on the laser gate. No sign of a push just yet, but again, they've got the opening primer, they've got the opening kill. Now they just need to try and figure out where these last little pieces of Navi's aggression are going to come from so that they don't get tripped up when they finally decide to commit at some point in the next 15 to 20 seconds. And there we go. That's exactly what they needed. Secretly holding the extended play over towards the main stairs. That was the last out-and-about player that Na'Vi really had to try and work with here. Still, though, they still need to move downstairs and execute onto that site. As we can see, they're going to have one more player still maintaining the gun vault position, but away from that, Nath will be the only one close to the site itself here. Unsure where the third is going to be rotating in from. Bosco, though, continuing to find impact, thinking Nate as well, getting the case down to the ground on the site. Saves cannot do anything, and finally, Doki goes down as well. It's another victory coming in for SSG as they take control of this map in the final round of regulation with a score of 7-5.
It takes one timeout from Lycan. The adjustments come in, and SSG looks like an entirely different team up against Na'Vi, able to handle the aggression and anything thrown at them. Fantastic game from both of these squads, but obviously SSG standing tall. Bolts able to convert quite a few frags there as well. 11-6-4 inside of this one.
Yeah, definitely a very impressive run overall, but you got to give credit to that great adjustment they made after the pause timer, really figuring out very quickly how to handle the Na'Vi defenses. Things look great for them after their first round, but SSG a very quick correction to take control of this matchup, push themselves into a leading position, and get their second win of the tournament against Na'Vi.
Fantastic stuff, and a very impressive showing here on Villa. I think that obviously the biggest thing that we have been talking about is the adjustments that they were able to make, and that's really the biggest part of the puzzle here. Na'Vi looked set for victory, but SSG able to get in front of that before it's too late.
Yeah, for the players on Na'Vi, we saw again a story of struggles. Some of their players, specifically, unfortunately, the Tachanka player, not able to find the fragging power that was necessary. It's been a very common story here at this LAN where we have one player that unfortunately is just not able to make the necessary contributions, and it seems like it's a story of the rest of the team just not picking up the rest of the slack there.
Yeah, absolutely. Secretly having a heck of a game there. It's just very unfortunate for him. Only able, I believe, to get one frag throughout the entirety of that, and that's max regulation as well. So
hate to call it out, but it does need to be pointed out.
Hey,
right?
they pay us to talk about this stuff, man. That's how it is. So.
And while we were seeing that contribution come in other forms, obviously secretly himself, and you can see the same thing for the Tachanka play coming in from SSG too. That player does need to focus pretty heavily on the utility deployment there in order to make sure the delay is there, since he has 14 of those. But either way, there's a whole group of people waiting to talk about this match. So enough from us. Let's send it back down to Bonnie and the boys and the desk to break this game down.
Monty and the boys here, ready to break it down.
We're just the boys.
Are we forming a hip-hop group?
I mean, we could be.
We'd be really bad.
No, I think we'd be good.
No, it's like...
No, we could do
I
some
would be bad.
harmonies.
Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, Monty and the Boys. We could be a British punk group. That could work
Okay, that would probably be better.
Yeah.
That would probably be better.
Fine.
out. You know, like punk, Jesse? What's wrong with you?
Well, I'd rather be a pop band.
You do have the face for it. You are cute.
Oh, you're cute.
And pointy. I'm pointy too, so it's okay.
There you go.
Very
I get
pronounced
that.
features.
Yeah,
We have a lot of elevation, you know.
I see that.
All right, well, enough about our looks / musical careers. Let's talk about this game, because Spacestation Gaming, they come in, they get the job done for the 2-0 in their double round robin against Na'Vi, and they look pretty good doing it. It was close for a while, but towards the end, they really started to escape with the game on their attack.
SSG come out with the win, and as Jacob and I were mentioning, I mean, they do just look ridiculous so far in the NAL regular season. Here in groups, they've been fantastic as well. And I mean, this is the game that mattered, right, Jacob? This is where SSG have locked down the first playoff spot. And unfortunately for Na'Vi, they're now out of it. That's it, because while they can tie for points, they lose all tiebreakers to Furia. So congrats to Furia as well for qualifying to playoffs, the second team to do so.
Yep, we're not going to understand where those two teams fit into the bracket just yet, because we got to figure out how
Seeding
that randomizes, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But it is essentially confirmed SSG and Na'Vi are in, and now the question remains, what does Na'Vi have to figure out for EUL Stage 3 or anything else going forward from here? That's 3 straight losses, and we pegged them to be in second place in this group.
One of those losses was an overtime loss, right, to Furia that they had. Oh, I guess. It was just, you only care about the win and loss column, not how they did it.
Yeah, well, I care about who's making it to playoffs.
Dark Zero's your favorite then, I guess.
I do care about points in this case. If Na'Vi had, at the very least, had been able to escape with 1 point and pushed it to overtime, regardless if they had won or lost it, then their future definitely still would have been up to how they did against Furia and hoping that Furia lost. Simply not possible in this case, though.
Yeah, and let's look at those standings to describe this so that people can actually understand why it is that Na'Vi, unfortunately, will not be advancing. So, as you can see, Furia has 2 games tomorrow, meaning in theory, if they lost both, Na'Vi wins theirs in regulation, they'd be tied in points at 4, right? But Furia has 2 wins in overtime. As you can see, 3 losses for Na'Vi means the maximum number of wins they can get is 1, which means that because win percentage is the second tiebreaker after head-to-head.
Correct. All correct.
So-
So that's tough. It's make tomorrow really sad for Na'Vi. They'll show up, they'll play their games, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because
Game.
their future's out. Their game, correct.
There you go.
Yeah. It will be a bit of a battle if Furia can get enough points to overcome SSG and become the first team in this seed. But yeah, otherwise, Group C is all decided.
That's the problem with Knights not being here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The future for there being a 3-team group in this case means it's really easy to figure out who goes in, who goes out. There's not that many implications because there simply aren't that many games to play in the first place. But
Yeah, I was really hoping for OT because they
Yeah,
were
seriously.
1 round away.
Same.
And had this gone to OT, they would have gotten at least a point, which would have meant that they were still in it.
Yes.
So, like, they were literally 1 round away from having a very impactful match versus Furia tomorrow, potentially, especially if Furia were to lose to
Yeah.
Spacestation Gaming in regulation. So, unfortunately for Na'Vi, though, they can't get that last round. It was very disappointing for us, though.
Yeah, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. You don't play, you don't win, you don't play the game beforehand. You just go out for drinks or whatever they're doing in Ukraine. You can't win. Sorry, that's the game.
you're really going to be criticizing that Na'Vi move at this point, right? With the boot
Yeah,
camp.
I mean, who's gonna try to show that as an upside? I'm sorry.
See, Jesse, I think what Navi's doing is playing the long game with the synergy of this roster, which is fair. Like,
Yeah,
if that's a
okay.
choice that they made. So I know you don't like that, but maybe Navi likes that.
Sure.
The question now remains, though, with a double best of, sorry, with the format that we've got going for us, Na'Vi going into their last game against Furia tomorrow, they don't have any reason to really play it. Like, they're going to go back and understand, yeah, there's no real reason to give our all anymore, unless you just want to get like a little bit more international practice and then get shipped back off to the UK. Like, there's no real reason to fight as hard as you would, like, for today, because there was elimination incentive. Just now you're done.
I mean, maybe you just don't want to be known as the team that didn't get any wins at all at the major.
Whatever you can do, yeah. But it's not even a case, again, with 3 teams where Na'Vi could potentially play spoiler to a Furia playoff berth because they're already there. So the thing for me is, so long as they can go into that game tomorrow and at the very least give it a good shot, you don't want a single, like, if you can go winless, that's the worst possible thing you could have done for the first time this team has ever gone to an international major. So,
Well, bummer for them, but we're still going to look into some of their gameplay. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the Bravo stream results. So it's a spoiler, giving you time in order to actually leave or, otherwise mute me in some way. And that time has now ended.
You need to know this, Jacob,
So
but
it is going to be an Empire win over TSM 7-4 on Clubhouse. So TSM still winless here at the 6th major in Mexico.
which I know you're happy about.
Look, I just like it when things repeat themselves, and so the reason why I'm happy, because people might not understand.
Yeah, there's some lore behind this.
So at the League of Legends World Championship, the last one that happened last year, TSM went 0-6 in groups in the same format, which is a four-team double round robin, and it was super funny. So I just like synchronicity, and so I just want that to happen again because I'm cruel.
The
you just
idea
hate
of
TSM fans.
TSM
All
being
good.
predestined to do this in this format. Yeah. All right.
So I'm hoping for it. Yes, I'm not going to lie. I am. We'll see how it goes.
It's true. They do have one more game up against, I believe it's Invictus later tonight, so that'll
and
keep paving the way for them.
I believe, don't quote me on this, but if they lose that, they're out. So the playoffs are gone, just like they are for Na'Vi. So, stakes are getting pretty high for TSM.
Something, Invictus, Dark Horse, something.
It's possible. I'm just saying, APAC looks really good.
Yep.
It's very true.
All right. Well, let's talk about Spacestation Gaming, who
Yeah.
also looked good, and you had round 3, Jacob, that you wanted to break down, going to a 2v2 at the end.
Well, this actually was SSG doing something not quite
That's true.
correctly.
They lost this round.
Yeah, but the thing about it was more that this is just kind of an understanding of how you need to play a proper post plant. I think there were only 2 members for SSG who were left alive in this round, and it was at this point Fultz and Hot and Cold. Now, what you see, 10 seconds to go. Hot and Cold's going to go in for a swing from the left-hand side and try to stop the trophy plant as soon as he hears it goes down. The problem is there's a hole open right over here, which means that Blur is just going to go right back in, swing. He has the perfect cross. Fultz should have gone back around the right side with him, probably to see if he couldn't pressure the sledge coming back from landing doorway or at least push from statue side. It simply didn't happen. So that one round in particular made it seem like it was just a moment where Hot and Cold just had one bad decision that led to a round loss. if they were able to clutch that one, I do think it means that maybe you don't even worry about the potential for overtime if SSG pull that round back, but Na'Vi just had their positions done very well.
Yeah, let's look at round 10 as well, Jesse, because
Please.
you said this is the classic like Space Station Gaming attack round. For those people who may have been watching other regions, why is this the bread and butter of Space Station?
I mean, SSG is just a monster on attack. They've got a 71% win rate on attack. That's 20 points above the average for teams here. And you start with the opening pick. It's always the opening pick with SSG. They've got a 60% chance of getting that throughout their previous games, and they've done an amazing job of it so far. And it doesn't necessarily matter who it is. Sometimes it's Faults, sometimes it's Hot and Cold. On occasion these days, it's Rampy as well. But it all comes down to the drones. They drone out Nathan. They get that opening pick. And then farther from this, keep on watching because there's going to be more gunplay that goes the way of Space Station. Na'Vi know how to play this defense with a man down. They've lost an Echo. Huge loss. You don't want to be in that situation. However, they're going to try to play this smart. They're going to try to play it somewhat passive, and they're going to play around these angles. And Saves is going to go for a bit of a swing throughout here when he's playing inside a vault. It is this top floor defense of Aviator Games, but still somehow Space Station are going to be able to come out on top and win some gunfights that they really shouldn't be. And I mean, as we come through here, you'll start to see how this progresses. There is also a moment later into this round where Doki nearly saves it, but what really helps out Space Station is the clock. So Doki's going to deny the plant at about 20 seconds from below. But look at the time right now. Space Station's got 1 minute and 10 seconds still to go in with his execute. They're already focusing on the bomb site. Yeah, sure, they've got to wait through 11 more of these fire grenades from Tachanka, which is being used great by secretly. But that's only going to last you so long. And this is the play I was talking about. Hot and Cold doing great work on this, but watch the push from Saves. This is just a terrible push. Saves barely misses those shots. You've got to hit those. I hate to say it, Hot and Cold's able to down Saves, and he's going to be able to finish off that player as well as he continues on with the blowtorch. So in an unfortunate situation, gets that kill, thinking he needed another one to blur, and this is classic SSG, picking players apart one at a time. Time is on their side. Secretly now the last hope. Doki is below and he's got the stop, but look at that time. 28 seconds when Rampy goes down. You're still in a 5v2. They're absolutely okay. And so this is why Space Station are known as the menace in North America, the best team at attack in this event.
Yeah, really nice patience.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
It's also a case where when you're able to isolate all of those 1v1 fights, and Na'Vi are basically a toothless animal if they can't win those gunfights very early on or act with man advantage. So yeah, that was a very good play from SSG.
And the numbers here too, I mean, you can see from Space Station Gaming, it's not just the Hot and Cold show, right? This is what we've talked about a couple of times with Space Station, is where Hot and Cold is the shining star of this team ever since joining the lineup. He's been the one to lead the charge. But 8-8, I mean, this was really more of a team effort. I mean, nobody going negative on the side of SSG. A couple of players there positive, even with 7-7-8-8. But, I mean, that's what Space Station is. They've always been a deep team, even if Hot and Cold steals the spotlight sometimes.
And every single time we mention this, it kind of feels like it's a broken record, but SSG's role swaps in Stage 2 have been monumental in terms of the metamorphosis of this team overall. We saw Folds play a lot of Tachanka in that game, which as far as, I don't know if I was totally expecting it because he's not necessarily known for the anchor player that's usually been a Bosco or a Thinking Nade, but at the same time, everyone across this SSG lineup is flourishing in the roles that they've got at this major.
True, but you go back to the day and Faults was known as the Maestro main,
That's true.
right? And
Yeah.
the Alda, you know, the LMG, they're kind of similar guns.
You're doing what you got to do with a smoke ban.
Let's do a little meta check, because actually at this point in time we're basically halfway through the group stage, which is very interesting, especially considering there was a patch coming into this event, so we did see some changes to the game. And we had heard that Tachanka would probably be used more at this event, but this is the first game where we've seen like a lot of Tachanka. That it may have happened on the Bravo stream, but like on the main stream here in your analysis, this is the first time we've seen a lot of Tachanka. Where does he fit in the meta right now, and will we see more of him?
A lot of it came down to using a Tachanka and a Smoke at the same time in terms of his very early usage, but he only had like 10 fire grenades back at that point, so it was very much a case where both Smoke and Tachanka could do very similar things on area denial, but we had a Smoke ban in that game. Na'Vi, in terms of their bans, have usually been very, shall we say, liberal with the options that they use there.
Sure.
But a Tachanka in this case was incredibly influential. Round 4, Folds is doing nothing but dumping fire nades down main stairs every couple of seconds, and that's what Navi's primary push is, and it takes them too long to adapt and try something out, like anything different. Secretly was mostly using Tachanka as well when they were on their defense, and that almost almost forced overtime simply because of the amount of time that was just denied and the amount of HP that SSG had lost up until that point in the round.
What were the patch changes or the meta shifts that allowed Tachanka to really come into play here?
So we got 4 more firebombs, right? Moved from 10 to 14. He got more destruction on his LMG, so he's better at that. And probably the biggest thing, he got the deployable shield.
Yeah.
So he's got the equivalent utility as smoke now, plus way more in terms of area denial, how long that's going to last. So he really does bring a ton of, just a ton to the defense in the same ways that smoke does. And I've actually been kind of shocked that we haven't seen more Tachanka getting played this event. I'm looking at CGG, and in terms of pick rate, he's not even on the list, which means he's not in about top 15 or 20 so operators on defense. So it's a little shocking to me that we're not seeing more of him given the buffs. It might be I'm overestimating how strong those buffs actually were, or maybe the teams just haven't had enough time to really work him into their defenses, or maybe they're saving it all for playoffs.
Very true.
So my final question about Tachanka, why does he wear that ridiculous helmet when it's when you can just get killed by one headshot even if he wasn't wearing
Bro, have you seen his elite skin? His elite skin is literally him shirtless with the same helmet.
He's the Lord. That's what he wears.
He is
no
our Lord
question.
Tachanka, yes.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up for me. It really explained it.
This has been your meta update, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Well, with that, you guys get a little bit of a break as we are going to go ahead and swap out our analysts once more, but we'll be back with some more Group C action.